talk about ayahuasca, but ayahuasca is actually a very demanding process, and you really are being asked to step over a significant threshold in terms of experience. But there are other plant spirit medicines out there that are much more accessible. I mean, the one I'm working with, starting to focus on predominantly now, is cacao, because it's ubiquitous in terms of its presence on the planet as chocolate, but very few people have experienced it in its raw organic form. And its raw organic form is a very different creature to what you get commercially available. It's a bit like tobacco and cigarettes, organic tobacco and cigarettes. So, and part of that is that when you take those beans and you harvest them and then you roast them and you expose them to high temperature industrial processing, you lose a lot of its native biochemistry. And it's that, and those chemicals, those potential neuromodulators, neurotransmitters that are present in the raw organic bean, are really what can take when they're ingested, can really provide phenomenally powerful experiences that are non-visionary. It's not a visionary entheogen.
We can talk about this whole plant intelligence sort of thing in the context of something that is a lot more accessible, and that is cacao. Not to be confused with coca, which is very different. Cacao is the chocolate.
The precursor to chocolate, basically.
Plant, right?
It's what chocolate is made of,
to chocolate.
Basically. And I was saying, essentially, that the very industrialized process of making chocolate is where we lose a lot of the potential health benefits that raw cacao can bring us. So, in a sense, its actual biochemistry is pretty amazing. It has some very powerful antioxidants. It also has some MAOIs, some actual enzyme inhibitors that potentiate the effects of these neurotransmitters so that they last in our system a lot longer. So we have basically the usual suspects. There's serotonin, and there's dopamine, and there's something called the anandamine, and that's basically a bliss chemical. And that really, people, when they experience a cacao ceremony and they imbibe properly made cacao, that's the first thing that they feel is this expansive sense of unity and bliss. And for me personally, also what I get within 10 minutes is this shutdown of thoughts and busyness, and it's just this being able to sit in the present moment without any sense of hurry, any sense of needing to do something, just pure being. So yeah, it's really, really phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's another chemical that also induces this, that we get when we are in love. So we have love, bliss, high serotonin levels,
Oxytocin.
No, it's not oxytocin, it's phenol, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Insanely interesting. Is that the association between chocolate and romance?
Well, well, there's another element which is actually, it has some aphrodisiacal qualities. And I'll just share this with you. A friend of mine messaged me the other day. He sat with me in ceremony, and he said, "I'm going to make some cacao according to your specifications. Would it be okay if I, got romantic with my girlfriend?" And I said, "Absolutely. This is, if it's between you two in private, it's designed for connection and for lovemaking and all that."
Wow.
So he messaged me later and said, "Well, that was the most intense 3 hours of my life."
Wow, that's intense, man. Not to divert, but a very similar thing happened to me with Damiana. I don't know if you know Tonera diffusa.
I've heard of it.
It's a plant that they use in. Yeah, it's very interesting. I came across it. I was in the stage of obviously I was making too much money back when I was half famous, and I was just ordering every plant I could find on the internet. I ordered in. That's how I found coca, actually, which has been a lifelong relationship that I've maintained. But I was ordering in what's that stuff they take in the Pacific for social bonding? Kava, yeah. I was ordering in kava, and I was ordering Damiana, and I was ordering hundreds of plants. But I got quite into Damiana because it's anxiolytic, and it also apparently is an aphrodisiac for females. I had never had that experience. So one night I had a birthday, I had some friends around, and I was just kept on making Damiana tea. And I wasn't with a partner at the time, but my friend sent me a message the next morning and said, man, whatever that shit was, I need some more of it.
So
Anyway,
it really worked for him and his partner, I guess.
yeah, he said it was prolific for his partner, for the female. But if you're saying that cacao is an aphrodisiac for both sexes, I think that's something appealing. You know, I think it's cool for people to, even inside their relationships, experiment with something other than alcohol, because most people are either sort of sober or they drink to bond with each other because it breaks down inhibitions, which is such a really bad, ineffective, unsustainable way to bond with your partner. I find. So these sorts of things, like taking cacao with your partner, setting a little bit of intention, creating a little bit of space, maybe having a enhanced sexual or not experience, I think that's very powerful. And I think a huge part of the reason why people use so much alcohol is they just don't have better tools. People need tools to help them connect to their partners or relax or bond or be present or enhance their neurochemistry. And I think that's where the revolution is happening, where people are starting to say, well, what does nature give us to do this?
It's curious, Ryan,
But
because if you look at the history of alcohol, I mean, I've got a friend in Egypt who's been filling me in a bit on the details, but alcohol was originally a sacrament. It was originally a vehicle for transcendence. And it's like all these things that we see, like tobacco in its original form and what it is today, cacao and how it is, being denatured in many ways through the industrial process. And we have chocolate, which is a distant echo of its potential. And we have, alcohol and it's, from the Egyptian mystery schools and the Bacchanalian traditions and what we have today of just getting basically, hammered as fast as we can. I mean, there's very, very different ways of using it in context. And I think, this really reveals, in a sense, how we've lost, connection with these originally transcendent and sacred substances.
yeah, Don Roberto, doesn't this come down to, we're talking about really everything we're talking about is an extension of our worldview in the West. You either believe, like Einstein says, you either live your life like everything's magic or like nothing is. And that couldn't be more true for what we're saying, because for a group of people that believe in capitalism and extractivism and that there's no form of consciousness that is relevant at all other than humans, and everything is dead and plants don't have any intelligence and the natural world is just this dumb thing, the stimulants and inebriants that we have chosen as a culture perfectly support that worldview.
Especially
and then when you sort of switch over,
yes, but like coffee, that's allowable because it makes you work harder. Fine,
Yeah, it makes you work harder and not think too hard about what you're working on.
And the alcohol is allowable because it allows you to decompress after you've been working so hard within a manageable framework.
Yeah. And I think that's what McKenna was on about. He was saying that the things that have made it through this threshold of acceptability. Sorry, man, there's a lot of shuffling going on there. Are you rubbing something against the mic on your side?
Oh, sorry, yes, maybe. Okay, go on.
No, just checking. Just
go on.
Anyway, so yeah, McKenna just said, and it really resonated with me. As a society, we've chosen a whole series of inebriants and intoxicants and stimulants, which absolutely solidify and support and reinforce our very limited worldview of that, everything is dead. And then what you're saying is, even with alcohol, there's a sacred context. There's a ritualistic use which is beneficial. Even with cacao, something that we eat every day, but is only like a shadow of its former self. There's a ritualistic context, a deeply meaningful experience to be had. But you have to first believe that there's something more to plants than just their chemicals.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
It's very interesting.
I'm not sure whether that's a prerequisite in order to get something out of these experiences, because
no, sorry, I was saying it's a prerequisite to actually try it.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you don't have to. I encourage people to go with their experience and define their reality according to what they experience. But yeah, you have to at least give it a go. Give it a chance.
Yeah, you have to give it a go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've got some testimonials of from recent people in South Africa who've sat with me in the ceremony, and it's just unbelievable, the changes and the experiences that they've had. Because it seems very innocuous. It seems like, I'm just going to, participate in this cacao ceremony, and somebody can facetiously say, "Oh, you're going to be drinking hot chocolate." No, we're actually going to have a container. Well, I've talked about this earlier. Having that container, the sacred container of space and time, to commune and to invoke and to have the presence, full presence of that being, and then to participate and have its original form, to be there and to be supported by it, and have its full spectrum of biochemistry present to interface with us and to work on many, many different healing levels, not only physically in terms of the antioxidants and the cardioprotectiveness of it, and also mentally in terms of altering the brain chemistry. So there's a very positive brain chemistry that we have, but also spiritually of really opening the heart and allowing us to go into the shadow aspects of ourselves. I mean, it's got so many different levels, and I'm increasingly, the more I learn about it, the more I practice it, the more respect I have towards it, and the more impassioned I become about it. Because it's all very well, and working as an ayahuasquero, it's all very well having done this work, and it's really phenomenally powerful work and transformative work. But there really needs to be some kind of advocacy for something that is not so threatening or not so challenging or not so daunting. That is easily accessible, and then can hopefully, from the inside a person's experience, transform the way they interact with the world through this one or a series of experiences working with cacao, for example.
Man, I've never heard someone explain cacao to me like this. And I had read about some people doing cacao ritualistically, sort of within the techno scene of Berlin, and I thought, oh God, fucking hippies have thought of some other stupid thing to do. But hearing you describe it like this, I'm really in awe and really sort of excited to try it. So hopefully I'll get the chance to do some cacao with you.
Hopefully in October we can hook up. I mean, the thing is, okay, so here's the thing. It's not just about the mechanical, oh, here's the ingredients, throw it together. Because I come from a training with plant spirit medicines from the Amazon, there is a specific way of communing and connecting. And that's often, I can show people, but sometimes they can't go away and say, we can't reproduce what you do, because there is already this, like we said, the dieta, right? The dieta is very important. And that's what creates the plant diet, where the plant, prior to actually working with it, creates a connection so that when you invoke it, you really fully invoke it. So, there are different levels. I mean, of course, the various people working in Berlin, they're doing what they're doing, but not all cacao ceremonies are going to be equal. And when you have somebody who has training and has connection and invokes the very spirit of that plant, when you're working with it, it's a very different experience.
My final question then, Don Roberto, is, do you ever still get the feeling, obviously you've been doing this for a long time, and you've acquired each piece of knowledge chronologically, slowly and surely, but do you ever get the sense that sort of in order to be of that space, you have to be totally out of your ego? And do you ever have experiences working in the role play of shaman where your sort of ego comes into it? The person that you were before you became Don Roberto, the shaman, the normal dude, because we were speaking about sexuality on the last show, and you're saying, when I'm off, I'm a normal bloke, I'm a normal guy. Is there sort of a polarity, like a fight or an interaction between this role play that you have as a shaman and the normal dude who, probably like the rest of us, likes tits, digs to eat potato chips, doesn't always, live from his highest place? How do you sort of navigate that challenge? And obviously, please feel free to tell me to piss off, and that's way too personal.
No, it's a very apposite that you bring this up, because that normal bloke has been transformed by the experiences that have unfolded. So yes, I can access normal bloke quite easily, but it's not quite the same normal bloke that it was maybe 10 years ago. And we were talking earlier about calibration, where some people, they just see the realms all the time, and it's all double rainbows and unicorns and all that non-stop. And because they can't calibrate it properly, because they can't control it, it's too much. Now, the thing is, the difference for me now is that I have the ability to access those realms, those dimensions, and to do the kind of shamanic work I need to do when it's appropriate. When I'm on, and when I'm not, I'm a regular, bloke. And I can navigate the 3D reality like a regular person with a bit of understanding and perspective. It's a bit different, but I don't necessarily wear my shamanism like a badge. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like an airline pilot where the first thing they say is like, what do you do? I'm an airline pilot or a teacher, right? It's so yeah, it's people are people, and the world is what it is, and we have to navigate it, in a very down to earth way. When I do what I do, that's special. It's ceremony. I have to be present and articulate those skills. But when I'm not, I'm just an average guy. So, and that's actually quite sane, because I have known other people who find it difficult to know when to do what. They can't switch it off, and I can switch it on and I can switch it off, which is a lifesaver, really. And here's the other thing is I don't identify entirely with what's happening in ceremony. Why? It's very easy for somebody who works with such a powerful medicine to identify with the power and the effects, and to think that they are the generator of this. Somehow that they're special, that they have a mission, that God has chosen them, and they are the Messiah 2.0, whatever. Okay, so we call it the God complex, and it is tempting because it is such an enormous power that is coming through the facilitator, and the dynamics are so enormous of what people are going through. It's quite easy to be subsumed by this and to be swallowed by this attractiveness. But that's the danger, because then it can alter your sense of groundedness, and it can alter your perspective, and it can actually start feeding on your shadow, because one can start really developing a cult-like attitude around what is one doing. Fusing this power with your ego is a very, very, very bad idea. So the antidote.
I think we like to believe that there's a checkpoint system in place where people who are still gravitated toward the ego would not be sort of allowed to access those higher dimensions of, attaining power or knowledge from plant medicine. And I don't know where that idea comes from, because in all the books that I've read, as you're describing, there are many people who have, quite a lot of knowledge about plant medicine, very, very knowledgeable people, but who are also fundamentally corrupted in terms of they are intent on using it to, feed their own ego.
Yeah, and the plants are there like a tool, like a technology, and you can use a knife to kill somebody, or you can use a knife to, do complex surgery. It's your call. It depends what you're into.
Oh, that is a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote you on
that. What the medicine does, it amplifies your heart, right? So if there is darkness and shadow within your intentionality in your heart, even if you don't recognize it, it will amplify it. If there's ambition, it will amplify it. So really, that's the injunction here, I would say, if anybody's really working with this. And I've actually seen this in so many places, that this actually does unfold, that people get maniacal and messianic and cultish. It's basically, to really check in. Why are you doing this? Because the antidote is humility and service, and at the moment, my perspective of what I'm doing is I'm simply a craftsperson, or an artisan. This is, I'm not an artist, but an artisan. And there's a difference, right? Because the artist is all about the identity, the ego, the name. But the artisan, and there have been thousands of artisans, is simply somebody who practices a craft and does what they do. And that's what I it's not about me in ceremony. It's about being the container and the facilitator for the experience to unfold and to hold the experience for the other people. That's it. It's it's very simple. But
could we acknowledge that it is extremely rare, and one of the dangers is, I was drawn to plant medicine because I was, in some ways, quite a damaged human being.
Aren't we all? In some way.
We certainly are. And, I have recognized as I've gotten older and matured that I have become, not maniacal about it, but preachy, obsessed at certain stages in my life. There's also been stages in my life where I've credited plants or plant medicine for work that I was really doing, and I've definitely, I no longer believe them as a magic bullet, but as you're saying, as a tool set, which can be corrupted to the extent that the individual using them is corrupt in his or her intention.
Yeah.
So it's very, very complex. And sorry, this phone that I'm using to record this is ringing. Okay, my bad. But can we sort of acknowledge that it's rare to find a person like you who's able to move through all of those complexities, all of that self-work, all of that stuff to actually be fit for service? And this is where I wanted to end this, is Don Howard Lawler said to me, there's a big difference between someone who aspires to service. Most people aspire to service, at our core, unless you're a really fucked up evil person, we all want to help each other and ourselves and live from a higher place, etc., etc., etc. But only a tiny minority of people actually do it. And when other people are entrusting themselves into your care, you absolutely have a responsibility to do that. And I think that's one of the messages I really wanted to get across in this podcast is this shit ain't for kids. You have to have someone who's absolutely dedicated and as you say, is checking in with themselves very regularly and saying, oi, why am I doing this? So, I knew if I had you on the podcast and you were a maniac sorcerer, that would reveal itself over the 3 hours. And you've been absolutely so consistent, and it's absolutely clear what your intention is in the space. And I've only ever met one other person that I held in such, I'm not blowing smoke up your bum or whatever. I've only ever met one other person that I regard in such high regard when it comes to a level of integrity and also coherence. Because it's so refreshing to hear someone who's so coherent and open in their explanations and willing to sort of discuss and analyze on the spot. Instead of just saying, oh, you'll understand when it's your time, my child. Drink the medicine and shut up. Trust me. I think that's a real sign of self-confidence. So that's what I wanted to get across, is having heard all the work that's gone into this, be very, very careful who you undergo these experiences with, because there is a very high barrier to entry of people who can navigate that responsibly.
Well, no, it's a very low barrier to entry, but it's very demanding toll in order to do it properly. And I'd say that because let's face it, you can look up the instructions to make these kind of medicines on the internet and order the ingredients, and any fool can do that. However, the realization that this is really sacred territory and it's very profound work, and the responsibility of guiding others is something that only the individual can assume that responsibility. Now, here's the thing: if the practitioner is not constantly seeking to evolve and to heal themselves, and to do the very healing work and to train and really blood, sweat, tears, puke, shit, the whole thing, then, they can only take you as far as they've gone themselves. Like I said, we've talked about it earlier, the person that sits in a plane and thinks they can fly the airplane, good luck with that, because that's completely delusional. You have to go through the whole process. You have to go through the whole transformation. You have to earn your wings, so to speak. There's no shortcuts. It really isn't. And unfortunately, we're in a society that does believe in, the magic bullet and instant gratification and shortcuts. And this is, we're on plant time here, and they're going to be your best guides if you are patient enough and you're humble enough to actually, take the gifts that are being offered. It's beautiful. It's demanding.
That is so intense, man. It's so intense.
It's an amazing part.
Beautifully articulated.
Thank you,
dude. I for one will be at your ceremony in October, absolutely. And my girlfriend and I have already agreed that short of returning back to Don Howard, you're the only person I would do it with.
Thank you. Well, I'm all local.
Certainly in South Africa. So we definitely, if you have space for us,
we'll make space.
And one of us doesn't plummet from the sky in a plane crash before then, we will definitely be at everything you have, the Cacao Ceremony, the ayahuasca, the San Pedro. Where can people, if this has piqued their curiosity, get more information? Is there a reading list you'd like? Is there a website? Can people contact you? What are your boundaries? What are your interpersonal boundaries?
I'm developing, actually, I'm moving from working underground, obviously, to more of a public profile. So, which specifically with the cacao, so I can be an ambassador and an advocate for this work. So I'll be moving in that direction. But people can write to me at the cacao shaman at gmail.com if they're interested in just connecting with me, the cacao shaman, all one word, at gmail.com.
Okay.
And they could just send me any request or information.
Okay,
Yeah, happy to connect.
fantastic. And that's where you would run the bookings for the sessions that you do, or does that run through? I saw when you were in Joburg, you
no, I mean that's
did it
just
through
just,
sort of
just
a
get in
facilitator
contact first, because there'll be your listeners aren't just in South Africa; they'll be all around the world. So we could just talk about, and that's how it works. If somebody contacts me and reaches out and says, "Can you come?" I say, "Okay, let me look at my itinerary and we'll figure something out." So I'm really open to traveling. I'm really opening to working in collaboration with people to really promote this work.
Fantastic. You've given me, and I think everyone, a lot to think about, dude. I cannot thank you enough for giving your time like this. Thank you.